In a quiet corner of California, on a small farm, lived an old woman. She had spent a lifetime working the land alongside her husband. Together, they had built a life with sprawling cornfields and a yard full of animals. But after her husband passed, a heavy quiet fell over the farm, and life became a struggle. Her knees ached with every step, and her movements were slow and pained. Her daughter and son-in-law had moved in, but they weren't the comfort she had hoped for. Her daughter, once so gentle, was now a stranger, filled with impatience and a short temper. The son-in-law was a shadow in the house, a lazy man who preferred sleep to work. The old woman, despite her weariness, still tried to help, to contribute, but her efforts were met with cold indifference. One starless night, she overheard hushed whispers from their room. "If we go on like this, we'll starve," the husband said, his voice laced with desperation. His wife's reply was a cold, sharp blade. "Mother has to leave. We need this house for ourselves." The words hung in the darkness, a sentence passed on her own life. The next morning, the world shattered. Loud thuds and scrapes pulled her from her bed. Outside, her life was strewn across the dusty ground clothes, blankets, old shoes, memories tossed aside like trash. Her daughter stood there, a statue of ice. "Mother, you must leave," she said, her eyes fixed on the horizon, refusing to meet her mother's gaze. The old woman's hands trembled. "This is my own house," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. But the front door slammed shut, a final, deafening sound. She sank onto the step, the wood cold beneath her, and cried until the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. A beautiful end to an ugly day. But what the young couple didn't know was a secret buried deep in the earth. For years, she and her husband had tucked away their savings, a little at a time, for a day just like this. She had hidden it all in a stone box by the old corral, a place only she remembered. That night, under the cloak of darkness, her trembling hands moved to the heavy stones. And there it was, her future. With this money, she could begin again. She walked until she reached the next village. A kind farm family, recognizing her from years past, welcomed her in. They gave her warm food, hot tea, and a small, safe room for the night. The next morning, a spark of hope ignited. She asked if there was any land for sale. "Yes, there is," they told her, and pointed her toward a good piece of land. She bought Italiano. With the help of her new neighbors, people who saw her worth, she built a strong wooden house. She planted rows of corn that grew tall and green. She kept chickens that clucked happily in the sun, and she found a peace she hadn't known for years. A young boy from a nearby farm would often visit, helping her with chores without ever being asked. He was respectful and kind, his presence a balm on her wounded heart. Meanwhile, back at the old farm, decay had set in. Her daughter and son-in-law, allergic to work, let the house fall into disrepair. Weeds choked the yard where flowers once bloomed. Their days were filled with bitter arguments, their nights with resentment. They still believed the old woman was destitute, a beggar somewhere, and never gave her a second thought. One day, driven by hunger, the son-in-law walked 4 miles in search of work. He stumbled upon a beautiful new farm, its fences strong, its fields thriving. He knocked on the door. It swung open, and there she was, his mother. "You," he gasped, his face a mask of shock. "Yes," she replied, her voice calm and steady. He stammered, asking for work, admitting he had no food, no money. She agreed to hire him, but on one condition. "You must not tell my daughter that this farm belongs to me." He nodded eagerly, desperation in his eyes. "I promise." He began to work, and for the first time in his life, he worked hard. The old woman never treated him with cruelty or scorn. Her only question, day after day, was, "How is my daughter?" And his answer was always the same lie. "She is fine." But she was not fine. Curiosity finally got the better of the daughter. One morning, she followed her husband. She stood in disbelief before the prosperous farm. As she walked into the yard, she saw her mother, standing tall and serene. "You have all this while I suffer," she shrieked, her voice venomous. The old woman waited for the storm to pass. "When you are finished shouting, you may speak to me," she said quietly. The daughter demanded money, the house, anything she could get. Her mother gave her a few coins, just enough for a meal, and softly closed the door. The couple wasted the money in a flash. Blinded by greed, they sold their own rundown house and land, convinced they would inherit this new, beautiful farm when the old woman passed. But the old woman had already made her choice. She sat down and wrote her will, her hands steady. My farm, and everything I own, will go to the young boy who helped me when I had no one. My daughter shall receive nothing. When her time came, the entire village gathered to bury her with honor and respect. Her daughter and son-in-law arrived soon after, ready to claim their prize. But the neighbors met them at the gate and told them the truth. Everything now belonged to the kind young boy. Shock and shame washed over them. They turned and left the village, swallowed by the horizon, and were never seen again. So, friends, remember this story. Even when life pushes you down, even when those you love betray you, you can rise again. Your value is never determined by those who mistreat you. With courage and self-respect, you have the power to rebuild your life from the ashes. Kindness grows futures. Greed destroys them. Choose strength. Choose dignity. And always choose your own path forward. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to follow 4 more stories that inspire.